Hello and welcome. It's me, Percita, and this is Percita's Paradox. Thank you so much for joining me today. I greatly appreciate you, your time, and effort in finding me on this thing called YouTube. If you're new to this channel, thank you so much for joining me today. And as always, if you're an OG, thank you for returning because you already know the drill. Without you, what would I be? It's a simple dynamic, absolutely nothing. So thank you so much for joining me today. So let's get started. It's a new week. We're super excited. Let's hope all is well. We're all doing well. We're all feeling good. We're all losing or gaining, whatever our goal is in regards to our physicality. We're getting our mental together, starting off our journey on this week. So what shall we talk about? Well, I kind of toyed with a few ideas over the weekend, and I really came back with, I just wanted to talk about how to let things go. And I wanted to talk about it because I feel as if we're all trying. And I think we're doing really, really well. I know I can say for myself, I'm doing really well. And for the few people that I interact with, we've been kind of having an ongoing conversation about it. And I feel like they're doing well. But today, the question of the day is, are you willing to let it go? And you may say, well, I thought you just said you were doing well. Well, remember, it is not about me, people. It is about you. And I want to know, are you really letting things go? And are you willing to let it go? And you may say, well, what are you referring to, right? That's always the way that you spin the questions back to me. In what dynamic? What are we talking about? Are we talking about something that profusely hurt me? Are we talking about family? Are we talking about friends? Are we talking about work? I mean, I will tell you that no matter how I flip it, I feel like hurt is hurt. And we get a little interesting in our definitions of how we describe and compartmentalize hurt, because I think we think about it differently when we feel like it's coming from someone that shouldn't hurt us, right? Because the expectation is either their family or they've been friends or they know you or whatever it is. But truth be told, hurt is hurt, right? I mean, it equates to, sin is a sin, death is a death. If the person was killed or if the person had a natural cause of death, the end result was death. And the truth is that death hurts no matter what, right? So I wanted to talk about being willing to let something go and how you do that, because I think it's just something that we can really use going forward. I noticed that even in regards to our gossip and when, people fall and have tragic things that happen, in public about them or their personal personas, and we've heard all of the drama about everyone and what their opinions are over the last week or so. But what I really want to know is, how do you let it go? So I'm going to give you some ideas of how I let it go. And I'm saying specifically the way I let it go because I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for some of the stuff that I say, but I'm going to be willing to put it out there anyway. First things first, how do I let it go? The first thing I do is I have to ask myself, is it my problem? And you may say, well, what do you mean? Is it your problem? It's my problem. I mean, is this something that I actually did? Is it something that I could fix? Is it something that I said? What, right? Is this something that is really proprietary to my actions transpiring to do something that would hurt or maliciously attack or undermine something in regards to another person? And I say it that way because I really am starting to understand when it's you typically are very, very sensitive in regards to the way that you expect the person to be. But I'm always interested, before I can even say that, I want to know that I contribute to any of that thing I need to let go or that situation that I need to let go. And I mean that by, am I spinning the story so that my hurt seems like it's more productive and it's of higher priority than someone else's hurt? So once I've touched that and I've really assessed if it's me or if it's not, then I actually am able to make a better decision on how I want to let it go. So then the second thing about letting it go is the person willing to talk about it, right? Because a lot of times we like to walk away, but we don't really want to verbalize it. And I always love the cliches that are out now where people are like, you can just simply walk away from something and everything doesn't need a conversation or an opinion. And I, to some degree, agree with that. But I'm always going to tell you from videos in the past, I've even said, it's very complicated for me to be angry with someone if I've not given them the opportunity to solidify it, right? So that's the next question that I would have to ask myself. Did I give them the opportunity to communicate? Are they willing to communicate? If they're not willing to communicate, then that kind of answers itself within itself. But if they are, meaning they're willing to communicate for one or two reasons, either they didn't know that they had done something to hurt you for you to need to let it go, or they have and they're willing to communicate, I would like to say that I then step forward and want to make that communication happen. Now, let's be clear. Not all those things that you need to let go, because you need to let everything technically go. But this particular case of letting go might not warrant you to want to talk right away. And some people go like, well, girl, how long is too long? It's too long when you get to the place where you just go like, I don't care about it. A lot of people play that caveat because then they put enough space in between the things so that they can make sure that they did not talk about it. And then they basically make the person who wanted to communicate about it feel bad because they're waiting on the communication. That's happened to me. And it's actually pissed me off real bad because then I'm trying to figure out if we are supposed to talk about it and you're delaying the communication because you want to not talk about it, but you've kind of lied about the idea that you're willing to talk, can get into something different. So I'm not referring to that. I'm actually referring to more of the person who actually is making an initiative. They want to talk about it and you're wanting to talk about it and you're going to actually talk. So I want to give that person the opportunity to communicate, right? And find out what that is. Thirdly, you got to go in with an open ear. Like so many times, even in arguments with your spouses, because I have a strange energy about arguing with friends. And I'll get to that in another video. But when you're arguing with people, or let's just say you're in a disagreement with individuals, particularly someone you're close to, you typically don't listen. You typically are in a position where you have already drawn your conclusion and you drew the line in the sand, and you're basically not really wanting to listen. But you're sitting there because you want to not look as if you're not listening, right? So you're giving the illusion that you're listening, but the entire time you're just literally waiting to get something off your chest. Now, that's where it gets a little tricky because I don't do that anymore. I used to do it a lot. Oh gosh. I mean, I would literally just let people talk just for the sake of letting them talk. I wasn't even listening to what they said because I was so gung-ho on making sure that I got my point across and that what I said was going to be more important because how dare they do me, and I needed to get my words out because they wrong and I'm right kind of energy, that it literally messed up a lot of relationships for me. And I learned very quickly that if I want someone to listen to me, I should definitely listen to them. And if I want to so-called fix the situation, whatever it is, then I would have to be willing to actually listen to another person's perspective. So if you didn't catch that, the next thing you have to do is actually go into a conversation with an open ear. Go into a conversation actually describing it. I used to tell people about the spoon technique that I learned in marriage counseling before I got married. And I've said it a few times and I'll say it again in this video. You literally have a spoon between two people that are talking. The person who's talking holds the spoon and they say whatever it is that they need to say. You know, hey, so-and-so, I felt like you weren't listening to me and it really hurt my feelings. Once that person is done, you hand the other person who's listening the spoon. And at that point, the person who now has the spoon has to say back what they heard before they can actually respond. So that person would have to say, so what I heard you say is that blah, 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 blah. Is that correct? And the person would have to confirm that what they heard is what they said, and then they can respond. That process makes it very complicated for you to actually speak over a person, the opportunity to speak, and you have now repeated it back, and you are listening as well as communicating. Then the next thing to really ask yourself is it worth it? Is it worth being upset? Is it worth losing whatever the connection is, the relationship is, the bond is, whatever it is? Is it worth losing? I'm going to always say that you can simply answer that question by referring to the last step that I just talked about, which was communicating. If you're willing to communicate, then I can guarantee you that whatever you're communicating about is worth it. The question remains, do we understand in the process that if it's worth it, that your goal is not to try to win? Nothing in life when it comes to a relationship is about winning and losing. It's always going to be a compromise. There's always going to be a lead. There's always going to be a person who has to then learn. There's always going to be the chief and the Indian kind of mentality. We go into a lot of our relationships, especially our platonic relationships, in this place of balance, let's just say, in this place of equality, in this place of, how do I put that? That would make sense. In a place of being able to always teach, right? But I'm starting to understand, and I've talked about it a little bit here and there, and I was kind of touching on it in my video where I said, where the girl's at, and trying to build a new platonic friendship amongst females. It's like, it's really not equal, right? I mean, if you really understand the individuality of relationships, everyone brings something very unique to the table. So there's really not a place or time where you're always learning, or you're always giving, or you're always taking, or you're always, right? There's just no always. There has to continuously be this revolving door of a give and take, of a learned behavior that understands everything has a process of giving and taking, growing and leading and following, and it's all okay. We're all not good at everything, right? So you want to be in an energy of understanding, like, it's okay to be in a situation where you're not just learning. You're not just, in a position of feeling as if you have to be beneath someone. And I say that because there's so many times that we talk about, making sure our environment and everything is up to par, making sure that we're leading, and making sure that we're finding people who initiate the lead process or assist us in trying to be better leaders, or we can learn from, or whatever. And as much as I would tell you 99.9% of my life, that is, of course, a goal for me, to want to be around people who are progressive and like-minded. But at the same time, there's a really tricky place in your life when you only want to be there, because you have to actually be so balanced and so acclimated to dealing with different types of people that it's smart to interact with everyone. Now, interaction doesn't necessarily mean a plethora of time or a plethora of events or things of that sort, but you want to be able to be everywhere at all times. So this is kind of where I think that line of remember where you came from was supposed to be about, right? It was supposed to be this energy of always being able to communicate on every level possible. The beauty of that is that as you think that, and as you grow, your every level becomes different, right? So meaning your plethora of things that you can do and speak, your linguistic skills, your emotional intelligence, all of these things grow. So you are not in a place of only looking for things to be one way, but you're understanding that the worth that I'm describing is something that's not only for your present, but for your future and for your future's future. So it's very complicated to just really look at things anymore for me and not understand that I got to let things go. And you might say, well, how did you get all the way back around to you got to let things go based on how you just said you were letting them go? Well, because there's going to be times and places that I want to learn something, right? Like I want to really involve myself with something or someone or a situation or an event, and it's maybe not receptive back to me. I can't then allow that situation to identify my worthiness or identify my position in my goal. I have to then let that go and understand that it just didn't mesh. A lot of times we get caught up because we feel like there's only one way to get someplace, right? So if we, let's just say, want to get into the entertainment industry and you only want to go through Warner Brothers Records, but you don't get the job through Warner Brothers Records, you don't want to seek any other company because that's your goal. That's what you thought you were supposed to do, and that's your purpose and blah, 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 becomes the idea of letting it go. Not because of the idea that your goal is off, but understanding that somewhere along the way, you may have lost your way and your idea of what will be a catalyst to get you to the next level. So your trajectory becomes a little blurred. And that's complicated to keep up to par. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky, because then you might say, well, okay, well, again, then how do you know what to let go and what not to let go? This is this thing in life called discernment. This is this thing in life called premonition for some, or how do I put this? Observation for others. You want to pay attention. You want to pay attention. You want to be in a place where you understand that letting go is important, and letting go is also important if you do it quickly, but also letting go quickly of the thing that you need to let go of is most important. And the only way to really be able to pay attention to what that is to understand how that works and really assessing your position in it from the very beginning. So lastly, before I can even make any final statement on how letting it go is so important, let me say this. When we think of letting it go, we typically think of something that's hurting us. But I'm going to be complete devil's advocate and go, sometimes even the things that are not hurting you at all, meaning you don't see any signs of smoke. There's absolutely none of the processes that I just described that you have to go through. Seems like everything is hunky-dory. You still might have to let go of that. You might go, well, girl, why would I have to let go of that if it's working for me? Because even a car that's running and it's able to get you from A to B could possibly put you in a position of not being safe at some point if you're not paying attention to what is going on with the car, meaning the aesthetic of the car. The tires, all of those things are fantastic, but maybe there's a little hole in the fuel injection. Maybe there's a mishap with the door handle and you'll get stuck in the car. I don't know. But if you catch what I'm trying to say, even when you can't see what you need to see, you have to be paying attention, because sometimes things look fantastic and they don't look like you need to let them go at all, but they're actually hindering your progress, because that easy, right, has a price, because easy is costly, and easy will then still cause you to be in a contemplational place and this content place, and it still won't allow you to do what you need to do. So in saying all of that, when I'm saying let it go, let me make sure I don't forget to touch on that, because that let go is just as important as letting it go if it's negative. So, what say you? What's in your life right now that you could really say to yourself, you know what, I should probably let that go? Are you holding or harboring any anger? Are you holding on to things that are simply easy and you don't really want to let it go because it's easy? Are you upset about things that aren't working out, but you've not let go of the idea that you have to do work in order to make things happen? You could phrase that question in 1,000 different ways. You can put yourself in the mindset of what I'm saying for a lot of things: relational, career-wise, personal, and more so than relational, meaning platonic or romantic. You can make it just about anything. But the question is, how do you let it go? You just let it go. When it's all said and done, after I've said all of what I'm saying, the truth is that you just let it go. You just get to a place where you have to understand, like I said, what's working and what's not working, and how you really want to be going forward, how you really want to be in that moment. If the relationship is that important, if the situation is that important, what's good, what's bad, what's been good too long and not grown, and what's been bad too long and not. And sometimes even in those cool situations, you just want to stop and just say, I still got to let this go. Because if I keep holding on to this, I won't grow. See how that's funny? Same thing with the negative. I got to let this go, because if I keep holding on to this, I won't grow. So I've learned in my years of living now is that everything is really a balance. There really is a sowing season and a reaping season. There really is the idea of an overindulgence of anything. Is an overindulgence of bad or an overindulgence of good is not a good thing. It really is understanding how to keep things at a balance and how to identify when to let it go. Hopefully that gave you enough food for thought to think about. As always, I greatly appreciate you joining me today. So if you have been with me this long and you have listened to all of my ramble, you know how important it is for you to like, share, and comment. Also subscribe, also hit the notification button, also share, and all those other good things. So please make sure that you have done that. Please, greatly appreciate it. But outside of that, before I could say anything else, please remember that before you can do those things, I need you to do these things. Live life authentic. Thank you so much. As always, I greatly appreciate you and your time and effort. And I'll see you later in the week. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.